Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from France and also Canada. It's a co-production, English language, released in the year 2018, directed by Pascal Laugier, and this film is called Incident in a Ghostland. So Incident in a Ghostland is about a family of three. You've got a mother and two teenage daughters who are travelling through to their home, and one of the daughters has a vivid imagination and she likes to write horror stories. And so she's telling one of her horror stories. The other teenage sister, she is starting to get sick of all this. So there's a little bit of bickering between the family, as you would expect. But when they get home, their lives are going to change forever, because that evening they don't realise they're being followed by two psychopaths in an ice cream truck. And these psychopaths conduct this very brutal home invasion that ends in a lot of bloodshed. So fast forward a few years and we realise that the family have actually survived this onslaught, but they're deeply troubled by it. One of the sisters has actually gone on to be a very successful horror writer, but the other sister was so traumatised by that evening that she's completely lost her mind and she's being controlled by fear. So one evening, the author, she receives a phone call from the sister. She's hysterical. She says that she needs to come back to the family home right now because they're all in trouble. So in a panic, the author goes back to the family home. She reunites with the mother. The mother says that the sister is completely out of control, but hopefully the arrival of this author is going to settle things down. But she doesn't really see that things are going to get any better. But unfortunately, the more that this author stays in the home, the more she starts to suspect that strange events are occurring, and maybe the past and that traumatic evening hasn't finished with them yet. So whether or not that is the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Incident in a Ghostland. I didn't know too much about this film. I actually liked the trailer, but as soon as I realised that Pascal Laugier was the director, I definitely needed to go and see it. Now Pascal Laugier, he actually directed a film called Martyrs. Now Martyrs, for those of you who are more into the hardened sort of horror, you know exactly what that film was. It was part of the French Fab Four. I've talked about the Fab Four time and time again. There were four French horror films that really took the world by storm, and it was the start of the French New Wave Extreme. So you got Martyrs, Inside, High Tension, and Frontiers. And these are all movies that really broke the barrier as far as endurance is concerned. So Martyrs is one of the most devastating horror films that you'll ever see. So for that reason, the follow-up films, it sets a standard and an expectation that is rarely met these days as far as really good directors are concerned. So he has since gone on to make Tall Man, that I'm not going to talk too much about because I haven't reviewed that yet. But although that movie was nowhere near Martyrs and nowhere near the impact of Martyrs, it still possessed his same style. So this guy hasn't lost his style, so it's an indication that, okay, he's not a sellout. So coming into Incident in the Ghostland, I kind of had an impression of what this movie was going to be about, but I was hoping that he was going to go back to what made him so good. And after seeing the film, I will say that I was surprised by how much I liked this film, for the simple fact that he's going back to what made Martyrs so good. And what made Martyrs so good is that it's a hardened horror film. It's a horror film that's showing you the true definition of the word horror. This is a movie that doesn't pull any punches. This is a movie that tests your endurance. It breaks down all of your defensive mechanisms, and it leaves you bare, and it leaves you vulnerable. And that vulnerability combined with the unpredictable nature of the film makes it a really scary experience. The scares in this movie were definitely thick and fast, and some of those scares were just from the visuals alone. The visuals had a very gothic sort of feel, and it really sucked me into the story. And I thought the overall house in this movie had a very claustrophobic feel because of what happened on that fateful night. And that fateful night, this is an introduction into the evil presence in the movie. And the presence, the evil is personified in a way where it had so much of an impact. It really unsettled me. And that's rare in horror these days, because horror is trying to get you in a way where it's very cheap. It's trying to get you in jump scares. It's trying to get you in a lot of bloodshed, but it doesn't show you horror for what it is, the ugly side of horror. But Pascal Laugier, he really understands what that ugliness is, and the ugliness is personified in a way that it just makes you, although you don't want to see what's happening, he forces you to watch it. It's because it's so visceral. It's basically stapling your eyelids to your forehead, and he's saying, watch what happens in real life. You know, this is something where a lot of people like to watch romantic fairy tales, because they want that to be their life. They want everything to end happily ever after. And my theory basically as to why a lot of people hate horror is because it's showing you the ugliness. It's showing you all those horrible stories that happen in the news, but because it's not happening to you, it's almost like doesn't exist, and you can push it away. And no matter how much you bury your head in the sand, the boogeyman is always waiting for you, and the boogeyman in the Incident in a Ghostland is what unsettles you the most. And so I thought the acting from the family is what makes the film so scary, is that there's so much innocence in this close-knit sort of family, and the chemistry is there. And I thought, all right, well, the innocence up against the the depravity of evil is no match for it. So they're trying to band together, they're trying to fight back, but the evil is just engulfing them, and it's hitting them, and it hits the viewer as well. And while you're on the ground, it's still kicking you. It doesn't allow you to get your breath back. It doesn't allow at any point of the film to actually feel as though you've hit a safe spot. You're constantly looking for a safe spot, but there is none there. And so that's what I liked about the movie the most, is that it's not making apologies, it's not watering itself down, but it's not going over the top to make it a cartoon sort of film. So it's not as violent as Martyrs, but it still had that high impact that I thought, all right, well, this is really, really uncomfortable viewing. So you got great villains. I thought the villains were fantastic, some very creepy looking, and there are some set pieces that I thought were phenomenally done, in that it actually had me on the edge of my seat, is because I really cared for these people, especially the teenage girls. I wanted them to get through, and so when the horror, the suspenseful moments are happening, I thought they were through the roof. So you've got a fantastic soundtrack to complement the great visuals, and you've got an ending that I would have liked to go down a different sort of path, but that's only a very minuscule problem in what was a movie that did have a lot of continuity. The fluency was fantastic. It never gets boring, and because you're never really sure how long this film goes for, is because you're just glued to the screen. You want these people to get through, you want innocence to beat evil, but unfortunately that's not how it ends all the time. And so because the fact you don't know where Pascal Laugier is actually going to take you, it leaves that sort of uncertainty up in the air, to the point where the suspense is, and the vulnerabilities around every corner you can actually feel as a viewer yourself. And so I just think that although it's not as good as Martyrs, it's still a fantastic horror film. If you like the more hardened horror and you want something that doesn't pull any apologies, then Incident in a Ghostland will deliver that. I just think that it is a movie that was so much better than I was expecting, and for that I really have to give it credit. So overall, for Incident in a Ghostland, go out there and see it as soon as possible. Going to give this one 4.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.